JP turned $1,000 into a $10 million e-commerce empire. And we're going to share how he did it, as well as go year by year, sharing how much money his business has made since he quit his job. And make sure to like this video, because at the end of the video, JP is going to share the biggest mistake he made, which cost him over $3 million. So stay to the end of this video because you'll get to learn about some of the mistakes he's made, and it's going to save you a lot of money on your e-commerce journey. So first off, what is the product that you sell online?
Yeah, we sell a pretty niche product in the dental health space. So we sell custom fitted mouth guards specifically for people who grind their teeth when they sleep, which on average affects about 8% of the population.
Why did you decide to sell this product?
I came across the product, and it's actually an issue I had in the past, grinding my teeth. And I know that you actually wake up with like pain and sore teeth. So I was like, are people searching for this product online? So I did some keyword research and found that it wasn't a huge amount of search volume, but it was like sufficient.
So you did the research, found that there were people searching for a solution to this problem, and it was something that you were personally passionate about, helping other people to be able to fix. And that's like the start of a passion product. That's the start of a really great product. So let's break down how much it cost you to start this business. It was around, we said around $1,000. Where did you spend that money?
Yeah, so because the manufacturing part was mostly taken care of, and every order, this is kind of a unique advantage, is made to order, right? So it's custom made for the customer. We didn't have a lot of upfront inventory costs. Yeah. So to start, I think I spent like $200 maybe on Upwork or Fiverr to get some designs. Yeah. And then I mostly built the website on, at the time, the e-commerce platform we used is Ecommerce, which was about, $80 a month. Yeah. And then we had to get some like shipping materials and impression materials. So that was maybe like $500. And then
around $100 in Google Ads.
Yeah, exactly. $100 in Google Ads, which actually hacked because there was like, if you sign up for Google Ads now, you get $100 free credit.
Right. So in total, to start this business that's now doing over $1 million a year, costs you around $1,000, which is just for everybody out there. You can do it even if you don't have a lot of money. But let's go into detail about how you started this business, and let's go back to where it all started. I know before you had this business, you were working in a job, and tell me a little bit about what happened here.
Okay, yeah. So interesting enough, right? When I started this business, it's not my first e-commerce business. The first e-commerce business I started was actually part-time while I had a job. So I'll roll back the tape to 2008. I was sitting in a cubicle at a telecom company working in corporate strategy, which was a fine, well-paid white-collar kind of job. But I read the 4-Hour Workweek and saw the possibility of, the freedom of entrepreneurship and not tying your income to the number of hours you worked. And that vision of, traveling the world, seeing different parts of the world, learning new skills and experiences was so alluring that I just knew that was not going to be possible if I stayed at my job. So I had to find a different path and stop working for the man and start working for myself.
So that led you to create your first e-commerce business, which is not the mouthguard business, a different business that was a different type of passion for you, a different type of passion product. Want to talk about that business?
Sure. So at the time, 2008, remember, there was no Shopify, right? To build a website, you needed someone who knew how to code. So I roped my high school buddy into it. So he was a software engineer, and this was like about the time we were finishing college. So we had this idea of starting Canada's #1 online condom store. And we called it topcondomscanada.com. Very simple, easy for SEO, right? So he built the first version of the website on OS Commerce, which was an open source commerce platform that was a huge headache to work with. Shopify is way better, so much easier to work with these days. And then, we did some SEO and then got some traffic and went from there. And we would literally do this on like evenings and weekends. And I would he lived in the city about an hour away from me. I would take the train over and we'd be packing condoms on the weekends.
So your first year, I think you made around like $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, somewhere in that range. What were you thinking this first year? Were you excited? Were you like, wow, this is a failure? Like, what were your thoughts?
Honestly, we were amazed that you could just put up a website and people would buy from it, right? Like the first sale I had was actually my roommate. But after that, we started to get sales from people that we never knew, right? And I was like, wow, there's something here.
Yeah, and sales kept going up year after year for the next few years. What were you doing during that time to be able to increase sales?
So this was the early days of SEO. So we did a little bit of link building, but mostly just optimizing the titles, the meta tags, and all of that stuff. And because my business partner and I both lived in Canada at the time, and the store was focused on Canada. It's not a super competitive market. So we were able to basically, if you Google condoms Canada or some sort of brand of condoms and like where to buy in Canada, we would be the number one result in Google.
And for everybody watching, SEO, if you don't know, stands for search engine optimization. It's basically how you can get your website ranked to the top of Google. So you were doing this and it was getting some results, but what led you to end up starting the mouthguard business? Like, what was the big trigger there?
Yeah, so I realized some shortcomings of the online condom business. First of all, it was based in Canada, so it has a limited size in the market. And there were already quite a few large kind of competitors in the US that we didn't think we could like do a better job of. And also it was like, basically we're selling other people's brands.
Right.
And there was a limit to that, right? You could make okay margins, but it would just be hard to scale.
So you're buying the products wholesale and then basically flipping them. I know a lot of people I see do this on Amazon or they do it on their Shopify websites. And so yeah, it's hard to
It's
scale.
not defensible, right? Yeah. Also, like if someone, buys a larger volume than you and gets a, cheaper wholesale rate, they can also sell for cheaper than you. Like you don't have any like intellectual property or anything that allows you to fend off competitors.
Right. And this is why I'm such a big fan of creating your own product, creating a passion product. So eventually you ended up going to, I think you invested in yourself. You went to this event. Talk about that event.
Oh yeah. So I think community and learning from the right people is super important in your entrepreneurial journey. So, it was like 2012 and I was, sitting at my job, commuting to my job, listening to podcasts. And one of the podcasts I listened to, I think at the time it was called the Lifestyle Business Podcast, but now it's called the Tropical MBA. These two guys who own an e-commerce business talking about how they grew their business. And they were having an event, basically like a entrepreneurship boot camp on a random island in the Philippines. So being the smart, web savvy person I am, I randomly PayPal'd $2,000 to an internet stranger and got myself a ticket to the Philippines. And then it was actually one of the, I think, most transformative experiences of my life because I got to meet a group of peers that were also chasing the same dream. So it felt like, what I was doing wasn't crazy. It was possible. Right. And then also I got to learn from people who were more experienced because these guys, I think their business was already doing several million in revenue a year. And they were like smart and authentic. And I learned a lot from that trip.
And this is just to repeat what you said. I think investing in yourself, especially if it's finding community, getting knowledge, finding mentors is such an important part of the journey. It sounds like that was kind of a catapult moment for you that really sprung you into the next phase.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, I'm still part of that community today. They have like a group called Dynamite Circle and, I'm still participating in it, seeing some of the people that I had met in 2012 and now they've really leveled up and grown huge businesses. And, we've known each other for like almost 10 years now.
And so this led you to starting the mouthguard business, which is now doing over $1 million a year, but it didn't do that right away, right? So you started this back in 2012. In your first year, how much money did you make in sales?
So yeah, in the first year, we did just over $6,000.
And how'd you feel about that? I mean, your last business was doing $50,000 a year. Now this business did $6,000.
That's a great question. So the way that I thought about it was basically, we talked about the limitations of the last business. I didn't have my own brand. I was just wholesaling. There was a ceiling to that business. Yeah. And having studied like in college, and I studied engineering and all of these like optimization problems, I understood the problem of like local maximum and global maximum. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, right, you're climbing up a mountain. You're like, oh, this way is up. Yeah. But actually, to reach a higher peak, you have to go down the smaller mountain peak then go up the larger mountain peak. So to me, it made sense because, I'm taking a step back from the business that I know has a low ceiling to focus on a business that at the time, I believe definitely it could do over $1 million a year in sales.
And this is also the time when you quit your job. So you were really, you're taking time off from the condom business. You're taking time off from, quitting your job and doing that. You're going downhill because in the short run, you lost money because, right, you went from probably a really good paying job to making $6,000 revenue the first year.
Yeah, I was definitely burning through cash, but this is something that I was planning to do for a while. So I was living really frugally. You know, I was living in a 3-bedroom apartment with 1 bathroom, and my rent was like $550.
But you were splitting that with other people. You're not living in a 3-bedroom apartment by yourself.
Right.
Okay.
So I was in a 3-bedroom apartment with 2 other roommates and 1 bathroom, and my share of the rent was $550. And then all my other expenses added together is probably like, you know, under $2,000, less than my current rent in LA, you know?
Right. And it paid off because even though it's not crazy money, but by your second year, you did over $100,000 in revenue. What changed? Was that because you quit your job because you were putting more attention on the business that you were able to hit 100,000, or what happened?
Sometimes it just takes, you know, time to build that fire and to get it to grow. So SEO, again, because I had experience from my content business, was one of our main channels, and it takes time for SEO to really like start taking off.
Right.
And we just kept working at it, and slowly it started to snowball.
And the next year you hit around over $300,000. Was there any changes that happened between year 2 and year 3, or just keep doing the same work?
Yeah, it was mainly consistency. And in the early stages, like, you know, I was calling up customers and like asking them, you know, how did you like the product, right? Like, is there anything we can do better to like understand the customer experience? And because I was basically like vertically integrated into our whole manufacturing process, we had full control over the product experience and the quality of the product. So we would use this feedback loop to make sure that our product was the best.
So that's another really important thing. Early on, he was doing things that don't scale. It was about just doing the work. And I see a lot of people, you know, I fell victim to this. They read the 4-Hour Work Week and they're like, passive income. I'm only going to do things that are passive. But in the early days, it's smart to do things that don't scale because it'll help you to learn what works and it'll help you to be able to grow your business. So the next year, you did, I think, $700,000 in revenue. Is there anything, just more of the same thing?
Yeah, just reinvesting into the business. I think that was the year we actually hired. It's hard to find a good SEO agency. It was literally the only good SEO agency that we've ever hired. And they kept working on our site. And it took about 11 months for us to see results. So
Wow.
SEO takes a long time. But then we just saw our traffic like climb, kind of shoot up and to the right.
So a lesson there is if you can hire the right people, but obviously it sounds like it's not easy to find the right people, especially in the agency world. I know a lot of people that hire ad agencies or all this kind of stuff and they end up losing a lot of money. So the next year was over $900,000. And for the next few years, the revenue was right around $1 million every single year. What happened? Like, why did it stall? You were growing like crazy and all of a sudden it stopped.
I think it's a mindset issue, right? Like I felt like I had made it.
Yeah.
The 4-Hour Work Week, right? I was pulling in like 6 figures in profit and I was feeling comfortable, complacent even. So I was just kind of like, don't get me wrong, I had done the work and set in the processes. We had like documentation for SOPs of how to handle things. We had some employees, but then I didn't continue growing my skill set to really take it to the next level. And also part of it, I think, is I didn't have the right community of like people who were just playing at a higher level. Like if I had been hanging out with dudes who were doing $10 million or $20 million, there would have been an inherent push for me to like, you know, level up.
Right.
But because I was kind of just like, you know, comfortable with where I was, I just grew complacent and kind of coasted.
But in my opinion, that's not all bad. You earned it. Like you worked really hard for years and years. And at that point, was it relatively passive income or were you still working 40 hours a week?
No, that was pretty much my quote unquote 4-Hour Work Week. You know, we had employees who handled most things. I would get on a call or two every week. I would answer some emails. I think in 2017, I took a 3-month trip to Europe without any issues.
Yeah. So that's what's possible. And I get that, you know, you're saying, oh, I grew complacent and I wasn't growing the business, but also kind of, you deserve that time. You worked really hard for that.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I definitely enjoyed it.
And that's going to lead into the biggest mistake that JP made, which we'll talk about in just a minute or two. But for anyone that watches the channel and knows about my story, I actually had a very similar experience. When I started my first passion product business and it started making $100,000 profit a year, I also kind of just took that time to enjoy the 4-Hour Work Week, enjoy a lot of traveling. And that's one of the biggest mistakes in hindsight that I made is if I would have put the pedal to the metal and really grown that business, it would be, you know, $10 million business by now. But To be fair, I enjoyed my time of traveling. So let's go into last year. You ended up making around $1.5 million. So what changed between 2020 and 2021?
Eventually, by being complacent, I actually saw the business start to coast, but also maybe start to decline. And obviously that lit a fire under me. And some of the things I did to grow the business also involved leveling up my own skill set, right? Understanding not just like how to hire people to run the existing systems, like how to hire people who have the skill set to like create more momentum in the business, not just to keep the wheels turning, but to actually generate momentum, and how to motivate people, how to really do a better job of branding and marketing, because we were, I think, more tactical and less strategic. And then we really spent the time to start to focus on, how do we build this into a real brand that could do, $10 million a year.
And let's talk about the biggest mistake you made, which we've already hinted at. And this mistake probably cost you at least $3 million. And that's not growing the business. What advice would you have for someone, like if you could go back in time and give yourself advice, what would your advice be?
Great question. So by not growing the business, right? Businesses, I've heard this saying before, either grow or they die. It's like an organism. It can't just like continuously coast. So by us not growing it, everyone else was moving past us. So we had like half a dozen competitors pop up. They worked harder on their marketing. They worked harder on Facebook ads. They worked harder on SEO. And by us not moving forward with like increased momentum, we were just falling behind. So the biggest mistake is being complacent and being comfortable with where you are, because entrepreneurship is a game of continuous innovation and continuous change. You have to level up your skill set, continuously learn from people who are ahead of you. So, if I'm at 1 million, maybe I learn from people who are at 2 million, 5 million, right? Or who've been doing business for like 5 years, 10 years longer than I have. And that's where, if I had done that while we were basically like, at the time, I think the #1 online custom mouthguard store. And if we had kept that lead and just leaned into it, I think we could be doing, several $1 million more right now per year in revenue.
And learning from other entrepreneurs' stories is probably the most important thing you can do. I made a playlist right here full of real entrepreneur stories about how they started and grew their businesses. So click on that playlist to see more videos. Also, JP has a YouTube channel. I'll put a link to that down below. And if you grind your teeth, check out the link to Pro Teeth Guard down below. Thanks for watching, guys.